There's a Bible story that clicks with some of the things that go on in today's businesses. I'm quoting 1 Samuel 17, verses 37 through 39. It says, David said, Moreover, the Lord that had delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Talking about going into battle with Goliath. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David. Saul armed David with his armor, and he put on a helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. Before you fight your giant, you better fight your giant with things that work. You can't fight your giant with the next man's weapons. You can't fight your Memphis giant with a giant from a guy with the guy's tools from Philadelphia. Although there's continuity and spontaneity that sometimes reach across state lines, that reach across industry lines, there comes a point where you have to be true to yourself. David wouldn't go into David wouldn't go into battle with the giant because he wasn't going in with something that he hadn't proven. Folks, that's why it's so important that you go all in on your own strengths. I know I got 1,000,001 liabilities, but should I concentrate on those, or should I go in on that which I'm strong? I may not be able to do this, manual labor. I got 101 shortcomings in those areas, but what I'm good at, I'm going to go all in on my strength. David was smart enough before to fight the giant at the place where he had discovered his strength. He called on his experiences. The Lord that had delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this giant. Why are we fighting giants with some new stuff? I know technology changes. I know paradigms have shifted. But you better go in and fight the giant in the area where you know that you're strong. Don't get some wild hair. Don't see what may work for Gary Vaynerchuk, or Grant Cardone, but it may not work for you. You better go in on your own strength. So many people are getting sucked up in, because we're in the age of influencers. We're in the age of people who have tons of people following them, and the gurus here and the gurus there. But you better go in on your own strength. I know the areas that I'm strong. I'm not going to concentrate on an area where I'm not strong. And I'm definitely not going to fight a giant with your weapon. I'm not going to fight a giant with your idea. I mean, I might have a skirmish with a little guy, and I'll try your stuff. I might be tempted to, retool some of the things that you do on a small front. But before I fight a giant, I want to fight a giant with that which is tested, that which is proven, that which I've had some wins, in the area where I've had some victories before I fight the giant. Never fight a giant with some new stuff, with some unknowns, with somebody else's thing. Folks, that's why it's so important for diversity. Diversity is so because everybody can't be strong in the same area. I love the saying, where I'm weak, you're strong, and where you're strong, I'm weak. Or maybe we can just be together. That's the power of teams. That's the power of instead of competing, at times we need to just come together and put a solid effort and try to win some battles as a team. Look, never fight a giant with the next man's stuff. You can't watch a YouTube video or two or hear a guy's course for one day and then go to have a conquest of a giant. If you got the fight's big enough, if the reward is great enough, you need to use some proven things that you've proven over time. Again, like I said, that's why it's so important to bring so many different people to the table, different ideas, different modes, different thoughts. Maybe the guy in Tennessee thinks different from the guy in California. And you have all of that all on one team. No one way is right. Saul was the king. Saul was the king. And David was bold enough to say, I can't fight with your weapon. So David went, he said, I haven't tested any of this armor. So David took it off and gave it back to the king. Look, you got to sometimes go in on your own truths, your own strengths. You got to stand on that area where you've had victory after victory, where you've had multiple wins. Every now and then, there's some guru that wants to change the game, that wants to make like you haven't had victory after victory. Sometimes, with 30 years in, I've been in the sales industry now for, good grief, since I was in my 20s. I'm in my 50s now. I'm kind of comfortable in a selling situation. I mean, there's some things that I've forgotten that I don't know, that some people have never learned. 30 years of having to live off of what I kill. I'm not saying that I'm cocky, that I'm the best that there's ever been, but I am saying I've got enough wins that I don't have to be, that there's no one I have to go around that I have to be in awe of or scared by. Look, folks, you've been doing what you're doing for so long. You got there early, you stayed there late, you burned the midnight oil, you put in the extra effort. Stop trying to win with the next man's armor. You've spent enough time. You've done enough. You got to go all in on your strengths. You got to go all in on what wins you've had. And I promise you, that's how you'll conquer your giant. You can't conquer a giant with all the next man's armor. You can't conquer a giant with all the next man's business methods. Most giants, David knew to conquer the giant, he had to deal, he called on his experience. Many of you have had enough experience to kill giant after giant after giant after giant, but you're always running to fight the giant. And you get to that pivotal moment where you engage the giant, and you're engaging the giant with the next man's armor. Let's change that, and I hope in the coming days to hear that you killed your giant. Have an awesome day.